Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for attending this virtual meetup with me. I am so thankful to be able to be a part of PodFest once again this year. I was lucky enough to attend PodFest in person earlier this year, and I'm really glad that I get to share this information with you guys. Once again, thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that you find tonight's conversation interesting, impactful, and informative. So let's go ahead and get started, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay, 1 second. There we go. Okay, everybody, so welcome to Gaining Trust, how to become a reliable resource for your audience. I am your speaker, Audreyonna Sequale, and a little bit about me and who I am. I started off as a blogger. I created my blog in December of 2017. I originally had the idea that I would be a lifestyle and fashion blogger, but then my life sort of took a turn. And in 2018, I was actually diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And so from there, I started documenting my journey with therapy and coping with anxiety on my blog. And it seemed to kind of, take off really well among, supporters and friends. And around 2019, I started thinking, well, since this conversation is sort of getting started around my group of friends and, my inner circle, why don't I invite those people into my conversation? So from there, I created Strong Friend Check-In, which is my podcast, in July of 2019. So she's a year old. I'm very excited about that. My baby is officially 1 year old. But again, I created Strong Friend Check-In to bring awareness to mental health in the Black community. Unfortunately for the Black community, mental health is something that's still a little bit taboo. And I felt like we weren't talking about it in the ways that we should. So if I had to be the one to put myself out there, I didn't mind. I'm so glad to have had friends and local creatives from Jacksonville, Florida, entrepreneurs and the like, to come on the show and be transparent about either, their journey with mental illness or, dealing with someone who has it, and just talking through a lot of, life things. So it's been really fun. It's really great. And I'm super happy to have the platform. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next slide. So here's the thing about gaining trust with your audience, right? We as podcasters, whether you have a large audience or a small audience, we are media personalities. And in 2020, in this era that we're in, I think it is imperative that we are providing trustworthy information to our audiences, right? So in a niche like mine, which is mental health and wellness, I pride myself on giving the very best information that I know of to my audience. And I've come to really become friends with my audience almost, and they've begun to trust me. And the ways in which they've become to trust me is I feel through the like, no trust factor, right? So here's how it works. Your audience has to get to know you first. They have to know who they're dealing with. When you first get to know somebody, see, that's always the first step. You usually offer information about yourself, see if you have any common interests, maybe you have some common expertise, maybe there's things that you like and they like. You have to have something in common, and that creates sort of a bond with a person. So for example, with my audience, I offer a lot of transparent material. I let them know how I'm feeling, from day to day. I share my experiences with generalized anxiety disorder. And I didn't realize at first that by doing that, it would draw so many people to me. But it's really been awesome to know that I'm not just sharing that information in vain, that people are really getting something from it. So my audience first has to get to know me. And then from there, they can decide whether or not they like me. And Luckily they do. Luckily they do. But when your audience starts to like you, they'll start connecting with you, like I said, through those shared experiences. And when they like you, that means that they keep coming back. So you're going to have that larger audience that keeps growing and keeps growing because people like you. They like your personality. They like your information. They like what you have to say. And then from there, even though you want to build your audience and always be getting new listeners, the main goal is to retain the listeners that you have. And the goal in doing that, I feel like it has to start with trust, right? When your audience trusts you, it means that they're going to keep coming back. They're going to want to know what you want to say next. They're going to, want to hear the latest information from you because you provided them with trustworthy, reliable content. And I think that's first and foremost, the most important thing that we need to be doing as podcasters is providing trustworthy and reliable content. Okay, it's not enough to just be interesting. That can hold some listeners for some time, but they have to know that what you're saying is true and right. Okay. So that's where passion versus expertise can kind of be a very fine line, especially when you're in niches like mine, health and wellness, or finance or politics. With those specific niches, your information has to be 100% accurate. I do deliver my health and wellness conversations in a fun way. I try to take the heaviness out of it. I try not to make the information, too scientific. I try to put it in layman's terms, but that doesn't mean that it's not correct, right? I'm still making sure that I'm checking my sources. I make sure that I have licensed therapists on my show, which we'll get to in a moment when I talk about having experts on your show. I'm always making sure that there's somebody there that's able to verify the facts, okay? And the reason that I do that is because being passionate about your niche does not make you an expert. Okay, I want you to read that again. Being passionate about your niche does not make you an expert. So, for example, I am a person living with a mental illness, but that does not mean that I am licensed to diagnose or treat anyone. I can only talk about my experiences. I can only talk about, what I go through when it comes to how my anxiety affects me. I can only share what my therapist tells me regarding certain situations. And like I said, that information has been received very well, but I can't tell someone how to cope with bipolar disorder or schizophrenia, for example, because that's something that I have not experienced and it's something that I am not licensed to speak on. So when that time comes, I'm able to bring on someone to my show that can speak to those instances much better than I can. So if you're in need of finding experts for your show, if there is a topic that you want to touch on and you know that you may not exactly have the range to be able to speak to that, you can always have someone there to provide information that you can't. So even if you're an expert, different perspectives add depth to a conversation. So it's really great to have other people on sharing different information for your audience, because that's going to make the conversation more interesting and give them, something else to think about. So if you are looking for podcast guests, good old Google is always going to have them there for you. You can look on Google and find you a guest pretty much anywhere. You can look on social media. You can always contact your network. But even if you've exhausted those resources, you can check out, number one, podcastguest.com. And it's as simple as that, podcastguest.com. You can gain access to a podcast directory with over 20,000 users, which, that's a really broad range. Whatever your niche is, I'm certain that you can find someone who would be a great fit for your next episode, especially out of 20,000 users. So I think that's pretty awesome. Also, Podchaser, what I really like about Podchaser is that you can actually find a creative who has been on different podcasts and listen to their guest appearances on those episodes. So that way you can hear the information they're providing. You can see if their tone fits your show. If you think they would be a good fit, see what they're talking about, see if their information is true and reliable, and go ahead and, submit your request to have them on your next episode or whatever. And then lastly, matchmaker.fm, which is branded as Tinder, but for podcasters, which I think is super cool. I have a feeling that this might work better for us than Tinder because you may actually come away with finding someone who is perfect for you in the podcast sense. I have heard of podcastguest.com. I have heard of Podchaser, but Matchmaker FM is a different one, and I'm very excited to use that in the future. Basically, just like Tinder, you go on, you create a profile, you let people know what you're looking for, what your niche is, what you're interested in, and find other creatives that you have things in common with so that you can find your perfect guest. And one of the things that I wanted to add to this conversation, which is important to me, and I'll explain that in just a second, but I think that what makes a really great podcaster is continuing your education about your specific topic. For me, health and wellness, it's something that I live. I cannot, unfortunately, escape my mental illness. I can only cope with it. But even beyond that being my experience, therapy has been so life-changing for me, so very life-changing, and I've gotten so much from it. And I wanted to be able to be a resource for other people. My blog, authenticallyasb.com, actually has a page of local and national resources for my readers or my listeners who, go over and check out my website, for them to be able to find mental health professionals. So I started thinking about a year ago, it's great that I'm able to offer that resource, but I would love to be that resource for someone. So as of recently, I've started setting a plan in motion to receive a life coaching certification. And the reason I wanted to do that is because, again, I feel like, I can only speak to my experiences, but with that certification, I'll actually be able to help someone. A lot of my listeners, they actually come to me for references to therapists, which I think is really awesome. I'm really glad that they feel like I'm someone they can reach out to. I'm glad that I'm someone who they can feel that they can be transparent enough to ask for help. But I would really love to be that person who's able to do the helping. So if you have any passion, if there's something that you're talking about on your podcast, let's say that you have a podcast about real estate and there's, a certain license that you want to receive, I would say go ahead and do that. The more you know, the more your knowledge expands, the more that you're able to, put out there to your audience. I think it would be really, really great for you. If there are any groups available near you, if there are any groups that you can become involved in, I would say definitely, get into those. For example, I am a part of a local group in Jacksonville, Florida, of Black female therapists. Again, I am not a licensed therapist, but I found the group on Facebook. I let them know that I am a podcaster whose niche is mental health and wellness. And they were having a meetup that week, and I went and I met all the ladies, and some of them have actually been guests on my show. So, going back to finding experts, make sure that you are checking out your networks and networking with other people, because you never know who you can find. But again, I think that expanding your knowledge on your topic could be really, really impactful for you, for your audience. And as a life coach, you could put a little, extra money in your pocket. So if that's a motivator too, but yes, I think educating your audience and yourself at the end of the day could be really, really beneficial for all parties involved. So at this time, I'm going to take some questions. Let's see if we have any. I don't see any questions in the chat. And I don't see any in the Hoover app. So if you guys don't have any questions, we can move on. You can ask me after this presentation, which is totally fine. I know that we're all on Zoom. It might, put some people on the spot, so I totally get it. But anyways, where to find me, you guys? First of all, you can definitely find me at my podcast, Strong Friend Check-In, which is available on Buzzsprout, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Yes, I have homes in many, many places, but whichever you choose, please make sure that you download, review, share, and like, okay? Also, if you are interested in checking out my blog, you can find that at authenticallyasb.com. Yeah, you can check that out. You can check out my past writings. You can check out the resource page like I discussed, especially if you're looking for, a therapist. You can just go on there, take a look at my national resources. If you're in Jacksonville, Florida, I have some local therapists that you can take a look at also. But that's pretty much it. That's where to find me. Again, download, review, share, and like. I love new listeners. I love when you guys interact with me. I love when you let me know which episode was your favorite. What did you learn? What impacted you? So I'm very much looking forward to new listeners. I'm looking forward to connecting with you all. And since that is it, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And again, I want to thank you all so much for joining me tonight for this virtual meetup. I definitely don't take it lightly that, you could have been anywhere, but you spent your time with me. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you will implement it into your podcasting. Again, I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys. If you would like a copy of this PowerPoint, please email me and let me know, or send me your email address. Yes, send me your email address and I will send that over to you, no problem. But once again, thank you so much. Thank you to PodFest for letting me have this virtual meetup, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the future. So thank you and good night.